I was parked outside his house with the engine off and my heart hammering so loud I could hear it over the ticking of the cooling hood. The street was quiet, clean. One of those smug little suburban cul-de-sacs where people water their lawns at the same time every evening. If you'd driven past, you'd have thought I was just another husband scrolling on his phone, killing time. But I wasn't scrolling. I was staring at him. His name was Ryan. I knew that much from the half-deleted text threads I'd pulled from my wife's phone. Ryan, the coworker who needed a ride, the friend from the gym, the guy who's going through a rough divorce. Be nice. I'd never met a divorced man who used more emojis than my teenage niece, but apparently Madison thought I was too stupid to notice. My fingers were so sweaty the phone almost slipped when I dialed her. I cleared my throat, made my voice light, casual, like I was calling from the office and not from 30 feet away. I was parked outside his house. I called my wife and said, "I'll be home in 30 minutes. She had no idea I was watching her walk inside. That call was just the beginning. That's how it plays in my head now, like the cold opening to some twisted documentary. At the time, it was just me whispering into the phone, trying to sound normal while every instinct I had screamed that nothing about this was normal. Madison picked up on the third ring. "Hey, baby," she purred, that sugar-coated tone she uses when she wants something. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Just finished up. I'll be home in 30 minutes. I watched through the windshield as she stood under the yellow porch light, one hand on her purse, the other on her hair, fixing it like she was auditioning for a perfume commercial. Tight black dress, heels I'd never seen before, the kind of outfit you don't wear for drinks with coworkers on a Tuesday. 30? She repeated. "You sure? I thought you said you might work late." I wrapped it up faster than I thought. I lied. Got lucky. I heard her inhale just a tiny catch. If you didn't know her, you'd miss it. I'd been married to this woman for 8 years. I knew every fake breath she took. "Well, okay," she said slowly. "I'm still out with the team, but we won't be long. I'll head home in a bit." "Where are you exactly?" I asked, watching Ryan's silhouette move behind the glass of his front door. "At the bar downtown, the one with the neon cactus. You know it." Her voice didn't even flinch. "Why?" I stared at the house number glowing above the door. 217. Nowhere near downtown. No neon cactus here. Just neatly trimmed hedges and an expensive SUV in the driveway. "No reason," I said. "Just wanted to hear your voice." She laughed. That soft, breathy giggle that used to make me melt. Tonight it just felt like sandpaper in my ears. "You're sweet," she said. "Drive safe. Okay? I love you." "Love you too," I replied, and the words tasted like metal. She hung up, and then, without even glancing around, Madison turned, opened Ryan's door like she'd done it 100 times, and walked inside. No hesitation, no guilt, just walked in. If she'd looked up, she would have seen me. My silver Honda was parked 2 houses down, right under the street lamp. But that's the thing about people like Madison. They get so comfortable in their lies they stop imagining anyone else is paying attention. She thought I was 30 minutes away on the highway, not 30 seconds away with both hands crushing the steering wheel. It took all my self-control not to storm out of the car and pound on his door right then. I pictured yanking it open, dragging her out by that perfect blonde hair she spends half our money maintaining, demanding an explanation while the neighbors peeked through their blinds. That would have been the emotional move. I wasn't interested in emotional. Not anymore. I slid lower in the seat and watched. From the front window, I could see the edge of Ryan's living room. A gray sectional. A big TV mounted on the wall. Some generic art that screamed, "Single guy who let his ex decorate." Shadows moved across the curtains. Once, her laugh floated out when he opened a window. I'd know that laugh in a thunderstorm. Minutes stretched. My brain replayed every weird thing she'd done over the last few months like someone was shuffling through a deck of red flags. The sudden girls' nights that never produced a single selfie. The new lingerie that made her feel confident, but never once appeared in our bedroom. The way she'd started sleeping with her phone face down, saying notifications stressed her out. Every time I'd asked about it, she treated me like a joke. "You're paranoid, Ethan. You really think I'd do that to you? God, you sound crazy right now." She'd roll her eyes, sigh dramatically, maybe cry if she felt like putting in extra effort. Madison weaponized crocodile tears the way other people used a credit card, frequently and without remorse. I lost track of how long I sat there. The street light hummed. A dog barked somewhere. A sprinkler clicked on in a distant yard. Time thickened, turned sticky. Finally, Ryan's living room light flicked on bright enough that I could see clearly. They crossed in front of the window. He was grinning. She was already unzipping her dress. My vision tunneled. I looked away for a second, staring at the dashboard, at my own reflection in the dark glass. I didn't recognize the guy looking back. Jaw clenched, eyes burning, lips pressed so tight they'd gone pale. I had imagined this moment 100 times while lying awake at night, but imagination is gentle compared to reality. Reality is watching the woman you married move through another man's house like she belongs there. I didn't need to see more. I got the message, loud and clear. My first instinct was to drive straight home, pack a bag, disappear. Leave a note on the kitchen table. "You chose him. Enjoy." Take whatever was left of my pride and get as far from Madison as possible. But another thought slid in, slow and sharp. She thinks I'm clueless. She thinks I'm on the highway right now, humming along, planning dinner. She has no idea the game is already over. And for the first time since all this started, a strange calm washed over me. The anger was still there, boiling under the surface, but something colder settled on top of it. Plan. Not fully formed, but real. If this was the beginning like I knew it was, then I wanted to make sure I decided how the story ended. I started the car, pulled away from the curb, and let the night swallow Ryan's house in my rearview mirror. I wasn't going home in 30 minutes. I wasn't going home at all. Not yet. I drove aimlessly for a while, just letting the city blur past the windshield while my brain replayed the scene in front of Ryan's house over and over. Like some sick loop I couldn't pause. Madison in that dress, his door opening, her walking in like she owned the place. My own voice echoing in my memory. "I'll be home in 30 minutes. I didn't go home. I ended up in the parking lot of a 24-hour grocery store, the kind with buzzing lights and a few lonely cars scattered around. I killed the engine, sat there in the dark, and finally let myself breathe. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This wasn't me overthinking, or being insecure, or projecting issues, like Madison always loved to accuse me of. This was hard reality. This was my wife stepping into another man's house while lying to my face without even blinking. The thing about finally crossing that line from doubt to proof is that it rearranges everything behind it. Suddenly, every weird moment stops being a question and becomes a piece of evidence. The late meetings that never showed up on her calendar. The sudden gym membership even though she hates sweating. The new perfume that made her feel powerful, but always seemed to be strongest when she was going out with the girls. I leaned my head back against the seat and let out a humorless laugh. How long had she been playing me? Weeks? Months? Longer? My phone buzzed. A text from Madison. "Maddie, everything okay? You home yet?" Home. As if she hadn't just walked into her boyfriend's house like it was a hotel room. I stared at the screen for a long second, then typed back. "Me not yet." Got held up. "You?" 3 dots popped up. Disappeared. Popped up again. "Maddie." Still with the team LOL. "We're just talking. I'll come home soon," face blowing a kiss. If there was an award for shameless lying, my wife would have taken first place without competition. She didn't even have the decency to pretend to feel guilty. Just LOL and a kiss emoji from another man's living room. I wasn't going to argue by text. Not now. Not with my emotions hanging by a thread. Instead, I opened a different app. My bank. If Madison was sloppy with her stories, maybe she'd been sloppy with the money too. The transactions were all lined up in neat little rows, dates, amounts, locations. I scrolled back a few months, eyes narrowing. There it was. A string of charges at a high-end steakhouse I'd never been to. 2 tickets for a concert I hadn't attended. A boutique hotel 2 towns over. I checked the dates. 3 of them lined up perfectly with nights she'd sworn she was helping a friend through a breakup, or covering a late shift because the manager begged her. I remembered those nights. I'd been home on the couch, ordering takeout, scrolling through channels, waiting for her to walk through the door looking tired and overworked. I thought she was loyal. She thought I was blind. The more I scrolled, the more the pattern popped out. It was like seeing constellations once someone points them out. You can't unsee them. Fancy dinners. Rideshare charges that started near our house and ended nowhere near her office. Little coffee shops in neighborhoods she had no reason to be in. All while she lectured me about cutting back, because we need to be responsible. And you don't understand how much stuff costs now, Ethan. Responsible, right? At that point, I could have thrown my phone through the windshield. Instead, I started taking screenshots. Every shady transaction, every weird location, every time-stamped charge that clashed with her stories. Receipts. Literally. If Madison wanted to treat me like I was stupid, I was going to be the smartest idiot she'd ever underestimated. By the time I was done, I had a whole digital folder full of proof. Proof that she'd been spending our money on her double life while lecturing me about leaving the lights on too long. Proof that she'd been lying so often she probably forgot what the truth felt like. It wasn't just about the cheating anymore. It was the contempt. The way she'd look at me when I asked simple questions like I was some clingy loser she had to tolerate. The way she'd sigh, roll her eyes, and say things like, "God, Ethan, not everything is about you," when all I'd asked was where she was going. I sat there in that empty parking lot with a quiet storm building inside me. I could have confronted her that night, could have driven back, banged on Ryan's door, made a scene that would have ended up on half the neighborhood's Ring cameras. But that would have given her something to work with: tears, drama, playing the victim, twisting everything until I somehow ended up apologizing. No. If she wanted to play dirty, I'd play colder. I opened another app. Our shared cloud storage. Family photos, vacation videos, old screenshots, and her synced albums. Madison never remembered to turn off automatic backup. Within minutes, I found a new folder. Hidden but not hidden enough. A series of mirror selfies in outfits I'd never seen. Hotel rooms I'd never stayed in. Wine glasses. Soft lighting. Cropped images that still showed just enough of someone else's shoulder, someone else's hand. Ryan didn't like staying off camera, apparently. Another set of screenshots. Another batch of proof. By the time I finally put my phone down, my hands weren't shaking anymore. I wasn't just a husband who'd caught his wife cheating. I was a man who'd just watched the life he thought he had explode, quietly, cleanly, with timestamps and high-resolution images. And now that I had the full picture, I knew one thing for sure. When I confronted Madison, it wasn't going to be a fight. It was going to be an execution of the lies, of the fake marriage, of the version of me she thought she could keep forever, trusting, forgiving, endlessly patient. That version of Ethan died in Ryan's front yard. The man who drove home from that parking lot, he was someone else entirely. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence of a house that suddenly felt rented, temporary, like I didn't belong here anymore. Madison slipped in around 2:47 a.m. Yes, I checked the time exactly, tiptoeing like a teenager sneaking in past curfew. Except teenagers don't smell like cologne they can't pronounce. She probably stood in the hallway, rehearsing whichever lie she'd decided on for the night. Madison never improvised. She curated reality like an Instagram feed, filtered, staged, and absolutely fake. When she finally walked into the bedroom, she acted surprised I was awake. "Oh, hey," she said, dropping her purse a little too quickly. "I didn't think you'd still be up." Her tone was light, like she was talking about missing milk at the store, not missing from her marriage. "Where were you?" I asked, my voice flat. Not angry, not pleading, just surgical. She blinked once, too slow, before her lips curved into that performative smile she used when she thought she was smarter than me. "I told you," she said. "Out with the team." "You seriously don't remember?" There it was. The first bullet she always fired. I'm the confused one. She was practically allergic to accountability. She walked past me, kicking off her heels, humming like she had no concept of guilt. Madison had mastered weaponized normalcy. If she pretended nothing was wrong, she expected everyone else to follow her script. I watched her in silence, and my lack of reaction must have unnerved her, because she finally turned and narrowed her eyes. "What's with the weird look?" she asked. "Did something happen?" Her voice carried that tone. The one that said, "Don't start." The one that dared me to ruin her night. I almost laughed. "Yeah," I said. "A few things happened." She paused, head tilted like a confused cat. "Okay? Care to elaborate?" I pulled out my phone, opened the first screenshot, the hotel charge, and held it out. Her face didn't crumble. It didn't twist in guilt. It didn't even flinch. Madison's greatest talent wasn't lying. It was committing to the lie like it was scripture. "Oh my God!" she scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Seriously? That was for a team event. We rented a space for brainstorming. I told you. You told me you were working late at the office," I replied. "Not checking into a boutique hotel." She laughed, and it wasn't nervous. It was mean, mocking. "Are you actually keeping tabs on my transactions now?" she said. "Jesus, Ethan, do you hear yourself?" That's pathetic. There it was. Step 2 in the Madison playbook. Turn offense into defense. If she made me feel crazy, she stayed in control. I swiped to the next screenshot. Dinner for 2. Wine. Candlelight. "I don't drink wine," I said. She didn't blink. "Just because you don't doesn't mean no one else at the table does." "The table," I repeated slowly. "Which table?" She folded her arms, her lips thinning into that smirk I used to mistake for confidence. I see now it was always disdain. "You really need help," she said. "This paranoia is embarrassing." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw the phone. I just opened the next photo, the one from her hidden folder. Madison in a mirror, wearing that black dress, Ryan's reflection blurry behind her. That one hit. Her pupils tightened, just for a second. A micro-expression, but I caught it. The mask cracked. "Where did you get that?" she snapped, stepping forward like she could delete it physically. "Cloud backup," I said. "You should really disable autosync before you build a second life." Her breath hitched, not in shame but in fury. Madison hated losing control more than anything. "You had no right to invade my privacy," she shouted, voice rising like an alarm that only narcissists hear when cornered. "Privacy." She said privacy like I was the intruder, not the husband watching his marriage rot. "You had no right to lie to me," I replied. My tone didn't change. Her anger couldn't crack me anymore. She scoffed again, shaking her head like I was an untrained dog failing tricks. "You're so dramatic," she hissed. "It wasn't what you think." "What I think," I repeated. "Walk me through what I'm supposed to think." She opened her mouth, closed it. There were too many lies and not enough exits. She grabbed her purse like she could outrun accountability. "You know what?" she said. "I don't have to deal with this. I'm not doing this with you." She moved toward the door. "Madison?" I said. "Stop." She froze. Not because she respected me, she didn't, but because something in my voice finally registered. I wasn't begging, wasn't angry, wasn't wounded. I was done. And she recognized that tone the way predators recognize when their prey turns around and grows teeth. She turned slowly, her expression wary. "What?" she whispered. I looked at her. Not the woman I married, but the stranger who'd been rehearsing her exit for months. "I'm not asking questions anymore," I said. "I'm giving answers." Her mouth parted, ready to spit venom, but I kept talking. "You didn't break my trust tonight," I said. "You ended the version of me who needed answers." She stared at me like she didn't understand the language, because for the first time, she wasn't the one holding the script, and she knew it. That terrified her more than being caught ever could. Madison didn't fear consequences. She feared losing control, and I had just taken it. Madison stood there in the doorway, frozen, clutching her purse like it was some kind of shield. Her hair was a mess, her eyeliner smudged, and for once, she didn't look like the perfectly curated woman she'd spent years pretending to be. She looked cornered, and predators hate corners. "What do you mean you're giving answers?" she asked, each word dipped in caution, like she was walking barefoot over shattered glass. I didn't respond immediately. Silence unsettles liars more than accusations ever could. It forces them to face themselves without a cue card. She shifted her weight from one leg to the other, impatient, annoyed that she wasn't the one directing the scene anymore. "Ethan," she said, voice sharpening, "if you're trying to intimidate me, it's not working." I almost smiled. She still thought this was about intimidation. She hadn't realized the ground had already moved beneath her feet. "It's not intimidation," I replied. "It's clarity." Her eyes flicked over my face, trying to decode whether I was bluffing. Madison loved poker metaphors. She always thought she was holding the ace. She'd never imagined I might have stacked the deck. "What clarity?" she pressed, voice brittle. "You're reading into things that aren't even there. You're trying to make drama out of nothing." She was getting louder now, desperate. Her lies always grew louder when they started running out of air. I walked past her, slow and deliberate, like I had all the time in the world. I opened the drawer of my nightstand and pulled out a folder. Yes, a literal folder. Screenshots printed. Timestamps highlighted. Hotel receipts. Photos. A digital crime scene turned analog so she couldn't pretend it didn't exist. When I placed it on the bed, Madison's expression cracked. Just a split second, but enough. Confidence gave way to something else, fear's ugly twin. "What is that?" she asked, but her voice had changed. Not mocking, not arrogant, trembling. "Your team events," I said calmly. "Your late shifts, your girls' nights, your boutique hotels." She took a step back like the folder itself was radioactive. "You actually printed things? Ethan, that is insane. You're stalking me." There it was. Her favorite inversion. She's the victim. I'm the monster. "Stalking would imply curiosity," I replied. I wasn't curious. I was confirming. She opened her mouth, ready with another denial, but I wasn't done. "You didn't cheat on me," I said slowly. "You replaced me." Madison's eyes widened, not in guilt, but in indignation. She hated hearing truth phrased efficiently. "Replaced? Seriously? You're being ridiculous. Ryan is just a man whose house you entered while lying to me on the phone." Her jaw clenched, her body stiffened. She looked like she'd swallowed acid. "You're blowing this out of proportion," she snapped. "It was just." "Don't," I cut in. "Do not finish that sentence with something you rehearsed." That stopped her. Not because she respected the boundary, but because she wasn't prepared for someone who wasn't buying the script. She tried a different strategy, softening her voice, lowering her shoulders, that counterfeit vulnerability she used when she wanted sympathy without earning it. "You know things have been hard between us," she murmured. "You've been distant. You don't understand me anymore." Yes. Step 5, rewrite history. If she framed her betrayal as my failure, she wouldn't have to feel anything except justified. "You're right," I said. She blinked, thrown off. "I have been distant," I continued, "because I've spent months living with someone who treats respect like a charity she gives when she feels generous." Madison's breathing changed, shallower, faster. Rage and panic fought for control behind her eyes. "You're twisting everything," she hissed. "I'm not the villain here." "No," I agreed. "Villains are honest about who they are." That landed hard. "I'm leaving," she announced suddenly. "I'm not staying here while you act insane." She grabbed the doorknob, yanking it like the house itself trapped her. But I didn't move. I didn't plead. I didn't chase her. "Go," I said simply. She froze again. Madison expected a chase. She thrived on it. Attention, even anger, meant relevance. If I chased, she won. But I wasn't chasing. Not anymore. Her voice cracked. Not with sadness, but with confusion. "You're letting me go?" I looked at her, and for the first time I wasn't seeing my wife. I was seeing a stranger shaped like the woman I once loved. I'm done being an audience to your performances, I said. If you want a stage, take it somewhere else. Madison's face twisted. Shock, fury, disbelief all tangled together. You'll regret this, she spat. You don't know what you're doing. But she was wrong. I knew exactly what I was doing. She slammed the door so hard the frame shook. For a second, I stood in the silence she left behind. Then something unexpected happened. I exhaled. Not a sigh. A release. The weight wasn't gone. But for the first time, it wasn't growing. The mask had cracked. And behind it, not a wife, not a partner, just a person who believed betrayal was a form of self-expression. Madison walked out thinking she'd won. She had no idea. I hadn't even started yet. The house was quiet after Madison left. Too quiet. Not peaceful, not empty. It was the kind of silence that sits on your chest, heavy enough to bruise a rib. I stood there for a moment, staring at the closed door, half expecting her to storm back in for a dramatic encore. She loved dramatic exits almost as much as she loved attention. But this time, she didn't come back. The silence stayed. I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and sat at the table like a man who had just watched his life detonate without hearing the explosion. It wasn't shock exactly. It was something colder, recognition. The version of Madison I had loved was gone long before I caught her at Ryan's house. I had been married to a hologram while the real woman rehearsed her escape. My phone buzzed. A text. Maddie, don't call me. I need space. Space. The woman who had invaded every inch of my life suddenly needed space. I didn't respond. She wasn't texting me. She was testing me. That's what she did. She pushed boundaries not because she needed freedom, but because she needed proof she could break the rules and keep the applause. I opened my laptop. I wasn't searching for answers. I already had them. I was documenting. There's something terrifyingly empowering about turning pain into data. Screenshots, timestamps, messages, bank records, synced photos. My marriage had left a trail wide enough to follow blindfolded. What I didn't expect to find was the email. It wasn't hidden. It wasn't encrypted. It wasn't even in a special folder. It was just sitting there in her inbox, bold and unread, like it was waiting for me. Subject: moving forward, documentation we discussed. The sender? A divorce attorney. My hands went still over the keyboard. Madison had been preparing her exit long before she walked into Ryan's house. Not impulsively, not emotionally, strategically. That folder on my nightstand suddenly felt like a prop in a much larger performance. I opened the email. It was a list of items she needed to prepare. Statements, property details, joint assets, passwords. And there, buried halfway down the page like it meant nothing, was a line that felt like a blade pressed against my spine. Asset distribution timeline depends on establishing primary beneficiary responsibility. Evidence of emotional instability may expedite proceedings. Madison wasn't cheating. She was staging. She wanted the house. She wanted the accounts. She wanted the narrative. And she needed one thing to secure it all. Me, unhinged, unstable, irrational. The late-night arguments she provoked. The accusations she shrugged off. The gaslighting. It wasn't chaos. It was choreography. She wasn't running away from the marriage. She was building a legal bomb to blow it apart and walk away with everything intact. My pulse stopped being erratic and became calm, focused. When betrayal becomes a blueprint, heartbreak turns into strategy. My next move wasn't emotional. It was structural. I forwarded the email to myself, printed it, added it to the folder. Madison thought lies made her powerful, but lies leave fingerprints. Truth leaves evidence. The doorbell rang. Not Madison. Someone else. Through the peephole, I saw a familiar face. Tyler, my neighbor. We weren't close, but we'd shared beers in the driveway, talked about football, chatted about lawnmowers, the typical suburban man diplomacy. I opened the door. "Hey man," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Sorry to bother you late. I thought you should know something." His tone wasn't casual. It was cautious. He looked like a man about to hand over a loaded weapon. "What is it?" I asked. He exhaled. "I've seen your wife at that guy's place before," he said. "A lot. My wife told me not to get involved. But you deserve to know." There it was. The confirmation I didn't need, but still felt like acid. "How long?" I asked. He hesitated. "Too long. Couple of months," he finally said. At least. At least." The words hit harder than anything Madison had said. I wasn't just betrayed. I was laughed at. Publicly. Tyler put a hand on my shoulder. Awkward but sincere. "Whatever you decide to do, don't let her spin it. She's been loud about you." Loud. Of course she was. Madison didn't just cheat on me. She rehearsed the audience reaction. "Thanks," I said, closing the door gently. I didn't slam it. Slamming doors is what emotional men do. I wasn't emotional anymore. I was activated. I walked back to the table, sat down, and opened a new document titled Exit Plan, Ethan's Version. Madison thought she was writing the ending. She had no idea. I had just started drafting mine. I didn't sleep that night either. But unlike the night before, I wasn't lying awake drowning in disbelief. I was awake because clarity had burned away the fog. There's a moment in every betrayal when the pain stops being the story and becomes the fuel. I had reached that moment. Madison wanted a narrative where she was the victim of an unstable husband. She wanted a judge to look at me and see volatility. She wanted emotions from me because emotions are messy, unpredictable, and admissible. But I wasn't giving her emotions anymore. I was giving her architecture. By morning, I had a plan. I started with the simplest move one Madison would never expect. I made breakfast. Eggs, toast, coffee, the usual. The kitchen smelled normal. Familiar. Safe. Anyone walking in would have thought we were a happily married couple with a small disagreement. That's the beauty of calm. It terrifies liars more than rage ever could. Around 9 a.m., Madison finally came home. She walked in like someone expecting a crime scene. Expecting shattered dishes, accusations, chaos. The only thing waiting for her was the smell of coffee and a husband who looked rested enough to be dangerous. She paused at the entrance, confused. "Why are you cooking?" she asked, suspicion dripping from every syllable. "Because we both have a long day ahead," I replied, sliding a cup of coffee toward her seat. No sarcasm. No venom. Just polite civility. That scared her more than last night. She didn't sit. She didn't touch the coffee. She just hovered, studying me like I was a ticking device she couldn't locate the timer on. "Are you okay?" she finally asked. The question wasn't concern. It was reconnaissance. "I'm better than okay," I said. "I finally understand everything." Her eyes narrowed. "Understand what?" "That the marriage we had wasn't a relationship," I said. "It was a performance. And I was the only one who didn't know it was scripted." She flinched. Not visibly to someone untrained in her tells, but I'd been studying Madison for years. Her mask didn't slip. It twitched. "You're being dramatic," she said, forcing a laugh. "You really need to stop seeing everything like a conspiracy." I smiled. Not warmly, not cruelly, just knowingly. "Madison," I said softly, "you hired a divorce attorney." Her reaction was instantaneous. A freeze, then a blink, then the recalibration behind her eyes. She was piecing together which breadcrumb she'd dropped. "You hacked my emails?" she demanded.
No, Irraplia.
"You left them open, like everything else." She scoffed, tone sharp as broken glass. "So what? Couples go through rough patches. It's smart to explore options." "Options," I repeated. "Like Ryan." Her lips tightened. Her nostrils flared. She wasn't angry, I knew. She was angry she'd lost control of the timing. "Ethan," she said slowly, switching strategies mid-syllable. "You're clearly going through something and I don't want to make it worse." Translation. Let me pivot before I'm cornered. "I agree," I said, "which is why I scheduled something for us." Her brows drew together. "Scheduled what?" "A couples therapy appointment," I answered. her face drained of color. Madison didn't fear honesty. Madison feared transcripts. Therapists take notes. Therapists notice inconsistencies. Therapists don't believe crocodile tears unless they're salted with truth. "You did what?" she hissed, voice dropping to that low tone she uses when she's losing power. "Today at 3 p.m., I said. "And the best part? I didn't hire a charity case. I hired someone who specializes in high-conflict marriages." She stepped back like I'd slapped her. "You can't force me to go." I nodded. "I don't have to. But skipping it makes quite an impression, especially given the pattern of financial withdrawal, repeated absences, and emotional distancing." Her jaw dropped. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I presented. Because in Madison's world, whoever sounds angriest looks guilty. I wasn't angry. I was methodical. Her eyes darted toward the door. Fight or flight. She wanted out, but leaving made her look like the guilty party. Staying put meant facing documentation. That's when I delivered the quiet kill shot. "Madison, I'm not trying to save this marriage. I'm documenting how it ends." She stared at me, something nasty and primal flickering behind her gaze. Not sadness, not remorse, fear, not of losing me, of losing control. "You think you're smart," she whispered, "but you have no idea who you're dealing with."
"I he replied.
"I finally do." She opened her mouth to respond, and my phone buzzed. Her eyes tracked the sound like it was a trapdoor opening beneath her. I picked it up. Ryan had texted her. Not me, her. The screen lit up with the message preview. Is he buying the story? Madison went pale. For the first time since this nightmare began, she didn't have a move. But I did. I looked up from the phone, met her eyes, and smiled. Not with victory, but with certainty. "You built a trap," I said quietly. "And you forgot something." She swallowed. "What?" "I'm the one who walked in last." Her mask didn't crack this time. It shattered. Madison stood there, pale and blinking, like her brain had unplugged and was rebooting in panic mode. The phone in my hand was now radioactive to her. Her lies condensed into one digital sentence that she couldn't talk her way out of. She stared at the screen as if sheer will could erase it. "Give me that," she hissed. Her voice wasn't angry, it was terrified. Terrified people are dangerous. Terrified liars are desperate. I didn't move. I didn't raise my voice. I just locked the screen and placed the phone face down on the counter like evidence in a courtroom. "Madison," I said, "you don't need me to give you anything. You already gave yourself away." Her hands trembled, but her face tried to rearrange itself back into composure. "You're reading it wrong," she tried. "He meant, spare yourself." I cut in. "There isn't a version of that sentence that saves you." She opened her mouth again, but nothing came out this time. Her tricks were failing her like a script written for a character who'd just been rewritten out of her own show. Her eyes flicked toward her purse. Not because she wanted to leave, because she wanted her phone. I stepped in front of it before she made a move. "Don't," I warned. "We're past improvisation." Something inside her snapped. Not gracefully, not theatrically, but like a ceramic plate dropped on stone. "You don't get it, Ethan," she spat. "You were never supposed to see all this. You were supposed to let things go." There it was. Not remorse. Not apology. Expectation. She expected loyalty without offering any. She expected trust without honesty. She expected obedience without respect. And she thought I would accept it. I leaned forward, my voice low, controlled. "That's your problem," I said. "You mistake silence for stupidity." Madison recoiled like I'd slapped her. Not physically, but existentially. Her mask had always relied on one belief. As long as she was believed, she was in control. Now she wasn't believed, and she had no control. "You're doing all this because of one stupid message?" she snapped, her voice wavering. "You're going to throw away everything over." I slammed my palm against the counter. Not loud, not violent, but firm enough to interrupt her delusion. "This," I said, "wasn't a message. It was a mission statement. You were treating our marriage like a business transaction. You weren't cheating, you were strategizing. She backed away, her breath unstable, her movements jittery. It was the first time I'd ever seen Madison without a persona. Raw, cornered, unscripted. "What do you want from me?" she demanded. Her voice wasn't accusatory anymore, it was defensive. Good. That meant she was finally aware of something. The battle wasn't her choosing anymore. It was mine. "I want nothing," I said. "Wanting is over."
I'm documenting.
Her eyes widened, panic leaking from every corner of her expression. "Documenting for what?" she whispered. "For the judge," I replied. She froze. Completely. "You're divorcing me?" she breathed, like she couldn't imagine losing something she didn't value. "No," I said. Relief flickered in her eyes. Too quickly. "I'm freeing myself," I clarified. "There's a difference." Her relief vaporized. "Ethan, don't be stupid," she snapped, slipping back into dominance mode. "You won't survive without me." There it was. The real Madison. Not cheating. Not lying. Entitled. "I already did," I said. "Tonight was my first night living without the version of you I thought existed." Her face twisted. "I made you," she hissed. That was her truth, not love, not partnership. Ownership. I laughed. Not cruelly. Honestly. "You didn't make me," I said. "You distracted me." Now she was trembling. Not with anger, but with the realization that her currency, manipulation, no longer had value. She lunged for the purse. I stepped aside. Let her take it. A desperate person grabbing tools they no longer know how to use isn't a threat. It's an ending. She scrambled for her phone, typing frantically, probably messaging Ryan. Her confidant, her contingency plan, her lifeline. I waited. 10 seconds later, her shoulders slumped. I didn't need to ask. I already knew. Ryan wasn't responding. Madison's world had one exit strategy, and I'd closed it by stepping into the trap she designed. "You ruined everything," she whispered. "No," I said. "You exposed everything." She looked up, tears forming, the crocodile kind she used to weaponize. But they weren't ammo anymore. They were liquidation. "Ethan," she said, voice cracking. "Just tell me what you want." I picked up the folder, thick with evidence, heavier than our vows had ever been, and handed it to her. "Read it," I said. "Not to understand me, to understand yourself." She didn't take it. She didn't have to. Her silence took it for her. There are moments that don't end something. They reveal it was over long before you noticed. This was one of them. Madison wasn't fighting for us. She was fighting for the throne she believed she still sat on. But the kingdom was gone, and she was the last person to realize it. Madison didn't speak. She didn't scream. She didn't beg, accuse, or manipulate. Not because she didn't want to, but because for the first time since I've known her, she didn't have a script. The fortress she'd built out of lies, rehearsed emotions, and pre-planned exits had collapsed, and she was standing in the ruins without armor. She tried to say something. Her lips parted, her throat moved, but no words came out. She was a magician whose tricks had finally been exposed, and without illusions, she was nothing but a person holding a hat with no rabbit. I didn't wait for her to recover. I walked past her, out the front door, leaving her in the kitchen with the evidence she'd created. The air outside hit me like a baptism. Cold, brutal, cleansing. I stepped onto the porch and inhaled deeply. For the first time in months, maybe years, the air didn't feel borrowed. The world outside our house, the house I'd once believed represented our future, suddenly looked like a place I could actually exist in again. I stood there, letting the wind settle the noise inside my head. And that's when the most unexpected emotion washed over me. Relief. Not because I was happy she was exposed. Not because I'd won some battle. But because I finally understood the truth. Madison hadn't betrayed me suddenly. She had abandoned me gradually. I just hadn't read the signs. When you love someone, you don't see the decay, you adjust to it. You mistake corrosion for compromise. You treat disrespect like stress, neglect like exhaustion, and apathy like a phase. You defend someone who left you long before they physically walked out. Madison didn't break me. She revealed me, revealed who I was, what I tolerated, and what I believed love required. Sacrifice, silence, blind loyalty. I had given her all three, thinking they were noble, thinking that commitment meant endurance. But commitment isn't endurance. Commitment has two signatures, not one. She shredded hers long before I questioned mine. I stayed on the porch until I heard movement inside. Drawers opening, footsteps rushing. The frantic chaos of someone who has finally realized they are no longer the protagonist. Madison was scrambling. Not because she wanted me back, but because she'd lost the story she was writing herself into. That was her tragedy, not mine. My tragedy had been believing she ever cared about us. I walked to my car, not running, not shaking, calm, steady. I opened the door and sat behind the wheel, looking at the house one last time. It didn't hurt. It didn't ache. It felt like a location in a story someone else had written, and I had finally closed the book. My phone buzzed. A text from my attorney this time. Received your documents. Moving forward. 2 messages. One from a liar trying to control a narrative that no longer existed. One from a future I had chosen. There are moments in life when you don't choose between people. You choose between versions of yourself. The version that lived for Madison died in the driveway the night I watched her walk into another man's house. The version sitting in the car now wasn't born from anger or revenge. He was born from clarity. As I pulled away, the rearview mirror reflected the house growing smaller until it disappeared completely. But it wasn't just a house disappearing. It was a prison without bars. A stage without an audience. A story without truth. The silence in the car wasn't empty, it was earned. I didn't need closure from Madison. I already had it. Madison once told me, "During an argument I now understand differently. People don't change, Ethan. They reveal." She was right. She revealed herself. And I revealed something too. You don't lose someone who was never yours. You lose the illusion of who you thought they were. And sometimes, that isn't a loss. It's the moment your life finally begins.